Iborn, hello. My name is Ramidu Deshapriya, and I am a Google Summer of Code student for the Sahana Software Foundation, working on the Pootle reintegration project for Sahana Agasti Vesuvius. For this project, my mentors are Mr. Greg Mianiki and Dr. Glenn Pearson. Now, the main focus of this project is to re-enable Sahana Agasti Vesuvius to be translated using Pootle and other translation platforms like Launchpad. Now what I'll be focusing on mainly is what I've done up to the mid-evaluation of my Google Summer of Code project. Now this is the wiki page for my project, and here I've included the project abstract as well as links to some documents related to the project. Here you get the project proposal I submitted to get into Google Summer of Code, the project timeline, and some other documents related to the strings found in Vesuvius. We'll be going back to a couple of those later. Now the first thing that I've been working on for the Summer of Code project is to translate the resource pages found in Vesuvius. Now these resource pages have all of their strings in the database, so I need to take them out of the database before applying some methodology to translate them. One such methodology was to use Google Translate's API. Now this Google Translate API has been implemented in this googletrans.inc, which is found in the res folder. That's the resource pages module, and the Google translation is applied through a special function which is shown here, and I've used that function to apply it on strings that have been taken out of the database in the res module, that's resource pages. Here you can see how it has been applied. Now if we go to Vesuvius and try this out, at first resource pages will appear in English, and I'll be manually changing the locale of Vesuvius to German. Now that's the locale file. I'm going to manually change it at this point just for the purpose of this demonstration. Okay, now just change this over to German. When I go back into Vesuvius and reopen the resource pages, Google Translate will translate it into German for me. And that's basically how the Google Translate API has been used to translate the resource pages of Sahana Agasti Vesuvius. Next up, we have another method that I've used to translate the resource page strings. Now Google Translate API is rather unreliable when it comes to translating strings, so my mentor suggested another way, that is to cache the strings from the database into a separate PHP file and enclose it with the specific function that gets called when creating the PO or translatable template for Vesuvius. So for that I've built up this PHP file and included the specific command line script for that. That PHP script gets called from the command line, and now I'll demonstrate how that works. Now when I run that script from the command line, it generates a specific dump file which has all the strings with the _t function, which is what gets used to generate the PO template, and the strings within them. Okay, the next portion is actually on the xgettext command terminal command. Now I'll explain a bit of that to you. Xgettext is basically a terminal command that cuts out strings from code based on a specific keyword. For Vesuvius, that's _t, and it writes all those strings into a PO template or Pootle translatable template file. And in the case of Vesuvius, we are using context to enable translators to easily understand what exactly they are translating. So we have a specific option for the xgettext command, as you can see from the third point listed there. Now next we'll see how xgettext has exactly been applied to Vesuvius Now the keyword or key function that we're using to get applied to xgetText is _t, as you can see here. That's the function. Then we're also using a context, as I mentioned earlier, to help translators to easily understand between different strings that might be the same but might have different context. So the context is shown in capital letters, separated from the string by the pipe character. So what gets translated is actually the string you see after the pipe character. Context is just there to help the translators out. Okay, now I have an xgetText command that I've written for Vesuvius, and that's the command. It contains the keyword, as you can see, the specifying _t as the keyword, and the 1g is actually referring to the context, where the context is contained. Now if I were to run this script, I'm going to run it on the RAP module, report a person module, which has context. As of now, I've added the context to those strings, and when I run that, I'll get this PO template, which contains, as you can see, a message context, which is the context, and the message ID, which is the string that needs to get translated. Now if I were to upload that PO template into Pootle, as you can see here, I have a running version of Pootle set up, and if I were to open up the translations for that, I'd be able to see the context for each string. You can see person info is the context for that string, and as I go along adding context to strings in Vesuvius, I add those contexts to this document along with the description and where that string was found, so that it's easier to keep track of each context that's been added. Now as I wrap up, I'd like to thank my mentors Greg and Glenn for all their help and insights into how to continue with this project, Miss Darlene McCullough, Google Summer of Code coordinator for Sahana Software Foundation, and then everyone at the Sahana Software Foundation who have been so helpful and so welcoming, and of course Google for doing this great program every year, Google Summer of Code. Thank you so very much for this opportunity that you've all gotten together and given me. Thank you, and Aibuan.